Hey, welcome back, folks. Glad you could join me. I've got to fill you in on a few things I left out in my last couple videos, which I kind of said I would. And sure enough, I no sooner put the camera away and I thought of some other things. And even today, one of the ones that I was going to add to, well, it was about working with hooves and that. And I actually showed you once before. I have a little light that goes on my head. It's called a headlight. That's the brand that calls it, they call it that. It's called a headlight. And super handy little tool. You can use it for a lot of things, but particularly when you're working with hooves. Excuse me, sir, you're in my way again. Why does he always do this? He always does this. I guess it's because I'm facing the camera. He wants to be in front of me. But anyhow, this little light, it's an LED light, runs on AAA batteries. You can get them on different ones. And they're very versatile and handy, and particularly when you're working on hooves underneath the horse, even in a fairly well-lit arena or barn or something like that. When you get under the horse, shadows down there, some extra lighting is sure handy. And if you got something that mounts on your head, and you know, there's a lot of different variations of them. There's some that just clip on your ball cap if you always wear a ball cap. You know, they work, but that limits you to, you got to have a ball cap on for your light. The one I have, I can use it with or without my hat on. And don't eat my jacket, sir. And very handy. Like I said, when you're working with hooves, the lighting down there, not very good. And that was something I wanted to show you because we're on the subject of picking up a hoof. And when you're picking up hooves, you need to see what you're doing. And so some better lighting is really handy. So these little LED lights, and word of caution when you're buying them, just because it has a whole bunch of bulbs in it doesn't mean they're any good. The first one I had, I think it had 5 LEDs in. It wasn't half as bright as the one that I have now that only has 1. So don't go by the number of lights that are in them to that. But anyhow, like I said, as usual, I forgot a couple of things. And I'm going to show you a couple of other methods of picking up a hoof. And then I'm also going to talk about something else that was included in that video, but I didn't really explain what it was, and it's the send. And it's an incredibly important thing that you're going to teach your horse and you're going to use, and it can be used for many, many, many different things when it comes to working with your horse. It's an absolute, in my opinion, pretty much essential. And I'll get to that in a minute. First, I'm going to start off, I'm going to show you a couple of things that I left out in the other one, and not super important, but just a couple more alternatives, ways of picking up the hoof. Oh, I know one other one I was going to show you too is a little trick with holding up the back hoof that is easier and much safer too. I'll show that one to you too, because I think that was kind of important as well. And I did come across it years ago in an article that demonstrated it, but by and large nobody ever explained that one to me and the advantages of doing it that way, and I'll show it to you in a sec here. Okay, I'm just going to very quickly show you a couple more methods that you can use for getting them to pick up the hoof. And I've seen them used, I've tried them, and they tend to work. Is the tendon right in here, there's 2 options. You can either give it a squeeze, like that, and so that your fingers are right in behind it. There you go, just like that. Or in some cases, some people will just give it a little scratch with their thumb like that. Well, apparently that doesn't work with this one. Oh, there he goes, finally does. But I think it's because he's already had a little bit of training with his feet anyhow. So now I'm going to show you a little bit on how to hold up a back one safely. Well, I think it's a safety issue, so it's one of the reasons I want to show it to you, because I'm big on safety. If there's an easier way to do something that is also safer, I'm definitely on board with it. So, okay, we're looking at a back leg now. Of course, we got the camera angled down, so you can't see much else, but hopefully you can get a good view of what we're going to do here, because this is kind of handy stuff and it's a bit of a safety issue too. Now, one of the issues around back legs particularly is you got to be careful you don't get kicked, whether they kick out to the back or whether they kick out to the side, which is referred to as a cow kick, which they can do as well. Not as hard, mind you, but either one you want to avoid. You also want to make it a little easier to hold up the hoof. But one of the things that you can do to make it very difficult for them to get a kick in, or a very good one anyhow, is you keep them from recoiling. It's kind of like drawing back the string on a bow. In order for them to kick, they pull the leg forward first, and then it goes flying back. Now, if you don't let them pull it ahead first, that can't go back with a whole lot of force. It's kind of like you trying to punch with your arm fully extended. Doesn't work very well. Same thing is if you can keep it out to the side more, they can't get you very hard if they come out to the side. Now, hopefully that's never going to happen, but this just makes it easier to hold the hoof up too as well. Because what I do is, well, first off, when I'm picking up a back one, I just kind of slide my hand down the leg so they know I'm here. It doesn't come as a surprise. You see he's already got his leg cocked. He knows what's coming. And I'm going to start off, I'm going to put my leg out, and I'm going to put it just about where his is, and then I'm going to slide my hand in behind, and then I'm going to hook his leg on mine. Now that makes it a little easier to hold it up. If you do it right, you get the right angle on it and everything. I'm not quite right because I'm trying to make sure you can see. But you kind of hook it over top of your knee, and then you let your knee hold the hoof up. So you're not doing it with your hand. That also leaves two hands free. If you're doing your own trims, you need two hands for the nippers. So I just thought I'd show you that one. That's just whenever you go to pick up a back one, though, it's also a good idea. You start up at the rump, slide your hand down. That way the horse isn't surprised when you show up and touch its leg all of a sudden. Far less likely it's going to kick out at you. Some people say don't do that because the horse thinks you're sneaking up on it. No, I'd let them know I'm there. It's kind of like if I ever walk behind a horse, I always put one hand on top of the buttocks just to make sure the horse knows I'm there. So it's, we don't like to surprise the horse because instincts will kick in and they might just kick out, even though they know better than to kick at you, and they don't want to because they like you and all that stuff. They might just on instinct alone do it. And we want to prevent that from happening. So, even right now, I got my hand against him, so he knows I'm here the whole time. So, whether or not he sees me in his eye, I'm sure he can actually. Horses got phenomenal peripheral vision, but, if they're taking a nap or not paying attention or whatever, you can still surprise them, and if you touch them all of a sudden. So I usually will run my hand down the side of the horse, starting at the front where they know for sure I'm there because they see me. And as I move towards the back, I'll run my hand down the back of the horse, over the rump, down the back leg, and there you go. One of the things that I included in my last two videos that I didn't really mention exactly, I said when the horse doesn't stand still for you, you send them off. And what I didn't really explain is what that consisted of. And this goes back to the very, very beginning when you first teach your horse to move, is you teach them the send. You're not just making the horse move. When you put your arm out and then use your flag, you're not just teaching your horse to move. You're sending it. You're teaching it. That's the beginning of the send. Now, of course, when you've got the horse on lead, doing circles, that sort of thing, you're going to do walk, trot, canter, and all kinds of stuff. But that's not the only thing you're doing. That's the beginning of the send, and it's probably one of the most useful things that you're ever going to teach a horse. I mentioned this before. You just point where you want the horse to go. I'm sending him. Now, you notice I didn't even use the flag because he's already learned this stuff. But I have the flag here because what happens is this is how you teach the send, is you start off by pointing in the direction you want, and if the horse doesn't immediately go, then you use the flag. So that's the only reason I got here, just to show you that you use it if you need to. If he doesn't go where you ask him to go, then he gets one of those, or bring it out, whatever, depending on the horse, how you're going to do it. No, keep going. I didn't ask you to stop. See? He's not perfect yet. And we haven't done much with him for a while, so he's a little bit spoiled too. But I told you every time the horse fusses and fidgets, you send him off. Well, you can't do it if your horse doesn't send. So that's why I said there's a lot of things that come before you pick up a hoof that don't necessarily have much to do with the feet at all. Like I said, the send, essential. Got to have that working good. in order to move on. So, there's lots of things that come before you pick up the foot. The send can be used, I could take them over to the curtain there, send them through there. I can point, send them over the jumps. I can send them into a box stall. I can basically make them go anywhere I want with a send without me actually going there. I don't have to lead them. I can send them. I can open a door and point at the door and say, get going, and he'll go through the doorway. So, it's one of those things. A send is one of those things that you can work on to teach your horse that for many other things is essential. And in a lot of cases, it'll simply make your life a whole lot easier. And the send is simply, when you point, the horse goes where you're pointing. And, this is a very poor demonstration of it. But I actually have a couple other videos demonstrating the use of the send. One is the safest way to go through a gate. It's where you send the horse through the gate first, ahead of you. And that works in doorways and anything else too, is you can actually send the horse through so there's no risk of it getting excited and running you over when you're halfway through the gate or door, and that's the use of a send. One more use. I had another video, I sent them through the curtain. I can send them over jumps. I can send them between poles. I can basically send them anywhere I want. Just before I turned the camera on, somebody had left some trot poles laying on the floor, and I sent them over those. So, it was one of those things. And I didn't even have the halter lead on at the time either. He's a little more advanced, but I got this on just so I can, like I said in the last videos, so I can keep him in front of the camera. What on earth are you doing? I am not a lollipop. Stop licking me. Goodness sakes. Weird guy. But anyhow. So anyhow, it's one of those things I wanted to, add in is that the other stuff that I was talking about in those last two videos aren't going to work without the send. You can't send your horse off to run a couple of laps until you've perfected the send. And that's why I say there's a whole lot of things that come before picking up the hoof, and they all got to be done in order. You got to do one so the next one works, and then when you get the next one working good, then you can do the next one. And eventually you can pick up the feet without a problem. He's a strange horse. Why do you keep licking me? What have I got on my coat? My goodness, now it's all soggy. Will you cut that out? I said, cut it out. Thank you. Goodness sakes. Yeah, you got to deal with things when they happen. You can't wait until later. And, it's something that a lot of people go, yeah, we got to work on that. Well, I'm going to work on it immediately. I'm not going to wait for another time. I'm not going to wait till I'm done this video and turn off the camera. If he does something that he's not supposed to be doing, I'm going to address it right now. Otherwise, he's going to learn that as soon as I turn that camera on and start talking to it, that he can do whatever he wants because the rules don't apply anymore. Newsflash, as usual, and this is where I say consistency. I've promoted that before, is the rules never ever change. It doesn't matter who's around, what we're doing, where we are. The rules don't change. And by being consistent, the horse is consistent. And it doesn't matter where we are, what we're doing, or anything else. You get a good horse because the horse knows the rules, and the rules don't change because you have been consistent. That's why it's important for that part too. But anyhow, just like I said, just wanted to add in that last little bit about the send, because without it, you can't do the other stuff I showed you. Because every time I made the horse move, particularly in the first video, I actually gave you a bit of a demonstration of how it was done, and I was sending that horse. And unless you have the send working, you can't do that. So the send is very important. And not only is it important, it's darn right handy, and I don't think there's any reason not to teach your horse to do it. So there you go. A little add-on. The methods that I showed you, I have used, if you read the description on those last two videos, I think I only put it on the last one, I can't remember, but excuse me, sir, again. In the description, I mentioned that those methods are exactly what I did with a 16-year-old horse that had been a problem with his feet his entire life. just by happenstance that their regular trimmer wasn't available one day. They were on holidays or something, and he needed to trim. And I says, well, I'll tell you what, I'll trim them, and I'll train them at the same time. Kill two birds with one stone, because it's way easier to do the two together, but most trimmers don't want to, because they just want to get the trim done and get the heck out of there. They don't want to hang around training your horse. They're not there to train your horse, they're there to trim your horse, and so they don't want anything to do with that stuff. But as it worked out good for me. You know, I mean, I actually, you know, I trimmed the horse, and because I trained him, I knew he'd be okay to trim. And he was very good for trimming. I actually did all of his trims after that, because he was that easy to trim. And I said, hey, you know, anytime you want the horse done, because I'm always here anyhow, it'd be a lot easier than trying to get a hold of a trimmer. You know, they were away for work for considerable periods of time. And so I could keep an eye on the horse. When I thought it was due for a trim, I'd give it a trim. And well, because I trained it, I knew it was safe to trim it. So there you go. So those methods that I showed you do work. And that was basically exactly what I did with this one, who was a green horse. It's also what I did with another one who was a problem horse. So whether it's a green horse, problem horse, the methods that I used are exactly the same, because you're just teaching the horse the right thing, period. And it doesn't matter what its past is, and that's where a lot of people go, oh, this horse has been abused, or, you know, it's been traumatized or whatever. You know, I don't care, because every horse has its issues, all of them do, and the issues get dealt with exactly the same way. Doesn't matter. I'm not going to cut a horse slack because it, you know, was traumatized or abused or anything else. You know, I might take a few things into consideration, but then I'd do that with any horse anyhow, just because of its personality. This one here, he's a bit of a thick head, and sometimes we've got to get a little firmer with him than other horses. I don't like how firm I have to get with him sometimes, but that's just the way he is. And not too much gets him excited. But anyhow, hope that was helpful. Just another little way to pick up feet, another way to hold the back feet, and the send that you employ in teaching the horse to have its feet picked up and to stand still while you're picking up its feet. Very important. Got to do things in order. I've said that before, and that's just one more example. Have a good day.